tonight as a theory of theory of financial market and financial intermediations. That's what we are discussing. Theory of financial market and intermediation. So if you look at the course outline, this is how the course outline looks like. So the first one is the theoretical concept. So which Dr. Kekova, De Bro, market imperfections. So we'll look at all these theories. So now hopefully then financial intermediation itself, financial intermediaries, financial markets, then economics of banking operations. So economics of regulation, balance sheet management, analyzing bank performance, risk management in banking and finance. If you recall, we have discussed most of this topic when we started this tutorial earlier on. We started since February. We've discussed most of these topics already. So tonight is just for us to do a quick recap, and if time permits us, we can touch on one or two past questions. So how does our exams going to look? How will our exam look like? I've said this several times, but still, for your information, this is how our exam is going to look like. We are going to have 4 different sections, right? Made up of two sections each. Each of the 4 lecturers owns a section each, right? So section A, there will be 2 questions there. Section B, there will be 2 questions. Section C, there will be 2 questions. And then section D, there will be 2 questions. So we will be required to answer one question from each of the sections, right? For section A, you pick 1 question. So, and each of the questions carry equal marks, which is just about 17.5 marks. So the total marks for the exam is around 70 marks. So that is how it is. All right. So now that I've said the context, let's start with the first part of the syllabus, which is the financial system. So everything already we've discussed it. All I'm doing tonight is just to do a quick summary of everything as much as I can cover. I want to do a quick summary of everything as much as I can cover. All right. So let's look at the financial system. So when you are asked to define what is a financial statement, the first thing you do is to break it into 2. Financial and systems. They are 2 different terminologies. Systems separately, financial separately. When we say system is when you are trying to connect 2 or 3 things together so that all of them can function together. That's a system. When you are trying to join 2 or 3 things together, that is what financial system is all about. I mean, that is what system is all about. So if you now had the word financials, you can now say that financial system is just the interconnections of financial institutions, operators, and instruments. So when we talk about financial system, there are 3 players involved. The first one is the financial institutions, second ones are the operators, and the third ones are the instruments. So who are the financial institutions? This could either be your non-banking financial institutions or non-bank financial institution. Yeah, your banks, they are the financial institution. Operator, you that you want to go and perform a transactions in the banks, you are an operator. And instruments, what do you want to go and do? Do you want to go and deposit? Do you want to go and withdraw? That's your instrument. So when you try to connect these 3 things together, that is what we refer to as financial instrument. So you can say that financial instrument is the connections of financial institutions, operators, and instruments in an orderly or regulated manner. Okay, in an orderly or regulated manner to ensure there is orderly flow of funds. So that is what financial system is all about. Okay, that is what financial system is all about. Now, when we now talk about financial intermediation, what is a financial intermediation? Right? What is a financial intermediation? No, in the olden days now, when we do not have internet, if a man wants to marry a woman, this is how it works now. There will be somebody in the middle that will link 2 of them together. That person will call it alarino. If you understand Yoruba to that extent, there is a middleman that will connect the 2 of them together so that both of them will now marry. So these intermediations too, they are like a middleman, right, that connect the banks and the customers together. So they ensure there is orderly transfer of funds from the surplus economic to deficit economic. So they are like as a middleman. That is what financial intermediation is all about. E.g., plenty people have deposits in the banks, right? They deposited money in the banks. Now, another people can go to the bank and borrow that money. So who is acting as the agent that is collecting the money and giving it out to other people? Those are the financial intermediation. So this is the process of transferring money from the surplus to deficit through an entity known as a middleman. So these middlemen, they are like your financial intermediation. So who are the financial intermediaries now? Please, I hope you are getting it. There is a difference between financial intermediation and financial intermediaries. Please, are you guys with me? There are two different things, though. Hello, are you following me?
Yes.
Okay, there is a difference between financial intermediation and financial intermediaries. Financial intermediations is the process, right? Is a process of transferring funds from surplus to deficit through middlemen. That is intermediations. But if intermediaries are the examples of those people that act as middlemen, what are the examples of intermediaries? Your commercial banks, security house, investment company, pension company, insurance companies, mortgage banks. Those are the intermediaries. So if they ask you to define financial intermediation and financial intermediaries, don't mix them up. Intermediation is a process, while intermediaries are those middlemen. Correct? So when we say financial market now, a financial market is a market where instruments can be bought and sold. Is a financial market where instruments can be bought and is a market where instruments can be bought and sold. That is what financial market is all about, where financial instruments can be bought and sold. That is all about financial market. Now, we are entering the main work now. So let's discuss. There are two types of financing. We have what is known as the direct financing and indirect financing. This is where the work is starting from. So in the olden days, before the advent of banks, what we have is known as direct financing. Okay, e.g., if all of us used to save money in Kolo, right? There is a box where we save our money in Kolo. So whenever you need money, you go and take your money from Kolo. Or we used to have some guys then that they will be going around the street to be collecting money from people. Like you save with them, they are like a thrift collectors. So those people, you give them money. When it is your turn, they will pay you back your money, right? So that is direct finance, whereby you don't need to involve any third party at all. I can easily approach anybody and collect money. I can easily approach Jeff. I can easily approach Coyote, give me money. Coyote will give me. It does not need any third party to be involved with us. That is direct financing. So direct financing is when you source for your money directly without involving any third party. Okay, that is direct financing. Under direct financing, you don't need banks. You just get your money directly. Okay, so this involves the process of lending and borrowing of funds without financial intermediaries. What are the examples of direct financing? Examples are loan from friends. I meet my friend, borrow me money. My friend borrow me money. Where I go? Or I go to bank to buy shares without any stockbroker. That's direct financing. I purchase my shares directly. Zenith Bank selling shares, First Bank selling shares. I went to the bank to fill a prospectus and I pay directly without engaging any stockbroker. That is direct financing. So other direct financing, you don't need any financial intermediaries. You do your things on your own directly. That is what direct financing is all about. So under direct financing, you don't need any intermediaries. Now, there are some challenges with direct financing. The first one is the cost of information. E.g., if I want to borrow money for somebody now, what it's going to cost me to gather information about that person will be far higher and moreover, I will not even get the accurate information. That is another problem. That is one of the challenges of direct financing. Liquidity risk simply means that if I borrow you money, what is the assurance that you will not run away with my money? That is liquidity risk. Like today, now I can be so nice to K now, for example. I can be so nice to K. K borrow me his money. Now tomorrow, I change it for K. That is a problem for him, right? Because it is a direct financing. There is no intermediary. Then there is also high transaction and monitoring cost as well. So it is because of, and also apart from that too, there is a limit to the amount of money I can raise through direct financing. There is a limit to how much I can raise through direct financing. So what I'm listing out for us now are the challenges of direct financing. There is a limit to how much I can raise. Your friends can only release you what they have. They can't give you more than what they can afford, right? So it is because of all these problems that I've listed above for direct financing. That is why we now have indirect financing. So indirect financing is the process of borrowing and lending of funds through financial intermediaries. I'm sure you already know that financial intermediaries, they are your banks. So the process of borrowing and lending of money through financial intermediaries, that is what we know as what? Indirect financing. I need money. I went to Palmpay to borrow money. Or who are these people that used to paste people's picture up and down? Lapo. Lapo is what intermediaries. So when you go through third party to borrow, you said what? All close. So when you go through intermediaries, that is known as what? Indirect financing, right? Remember, loan from friends is a direct financing. Loan through bank is an indirect financing. So let's look at the difference between direct financing and indirect financing. Number one, they are under direct financing. They don't need intermediaries. To them, bank is useless. They don't need banks. We will do our things on our own. I can easily meet you and collect money from you. That is direct financing. But indirect financing involves the uses of intermediaries. That's number one example. Direct financing does not involve intermediaries, whereas under indirect financing, you need intermediaries. They can ask us to list 5 or 10 differences between direct financing and indirect financing. Those are the things I'm listing for us now. Then, number two, on indirect financing, there is usually an existing relationship between lender and borrowers, whereas under indirect financing, there is no existing relationship. E.g., before I can approach Oga Nafada now to borrow me money, myself and Nafada, we must have known each other for long. He is trust me, we build that trust between ourselves. So that means before I can get anything under direct financing, there must have been a relationship. I can't just be walking on the road and I stop somebody on the road here, Oga, give me money, borrow me money. It's not going to happen. However, under indirect financing, you don't need any relationship. I can walk up to any banks tomorrow and request for facilities as long as I meet up with their terms and conditions. Please note, banks are not your friends. They are doing business. I can walk up to any banks tomorrow to borrow money as long as I tick all their checklists. They will give me. They won't say because they don't know me before. They will not give me. As long as I meet up with their collateral or whatever, bank will give me money. However, under direct financing, that cannot happen. There must have been some form of relationship. Now, the third one is that direct financing is not regulated. I want to borrow money from somebody now, from my friend. Which is CBN monitoring that? Or you borrow money from your wife or from your husband? Who is monitoring that? Nobody. So there is no regulatory body monitoring direct financing. However, for indirect financing, it is being monitored. Banks are being regulated and everything. Okay. Another difference is that you can easily access direct financing. However, indirect financing is not easy to access. You have to, bank will tell you to go and bring your late grandfather birth certificate. They will do a whole lot of due diligence on you. Sorry, who is that? Someone is on mute. A burial. Okay, is the person muted now? Thank you. So what I'm saying is that you can easily access direct financing. It's just you and your friend. Once both of you agree, you get your money. But indirect financing, it requires some process, right? Then number 5, there is limit to what you can get under direct financing. It is what your friend can give you can get. But under indirect financing, you can get unlimited funds as long as you meet up with the threshold or with the criteria. There is no limit to how much bank can give you as long as you meet up. Then number 6 is that under direct financing, there is limited information that is available. It's only what I tell you that you know about me. If I don't tell you something, you don't know it. But for indirect financing, banks have history. They can check everything about you. Once they key your BVN, NIN, they know all your information. So there is more information under indirect financing than we have under direct financing, right? So another one is that under direct financing, if I default, no credit bureau will list me as a defaulter. Did we sign any agreement? Maybe I meet you, borrow me money, and everybody find their way. But if you try to default money under indirect financing, your credit rating will drop. You'll be listed on credit bureau platform. So those of you that borrow money from Lapo and you refuse to pay, or you all those things, there is a credit rating for you that is going down small. Your credit score is going down. It is when you need money that you will know that your credit score has been impaired. So that is those are the examples of direct finance and indirect finance. I hope we all have an understanding of that now. So let's move on to what is known as a perfect marketer. So, we have two schools of thoughts under these things. There is a perfect market system. They are known as a neoclassical, and we have the imperfect market system. Those are the classical. Now, these perfect market systems is known as a neoclassical. So these are the people that they are referred to as Arrow-Debreu model. Okay, we have an economics that form this theory. That economics is known as Arrow-Debreu model. So under this, just know that this Arrow-Debreu model is the same thing as perfect market system, which is also the same as a direct finance. So perfect market system, neoclassical, Arrow-Debreu, direct finance, they are all the same thing. So these guys, they are the ones that are advocating that we don't need intermediaries. We can do our things on our own. We don't need banks. We don't need the insurance company. We don't need the pension company. We can do our things on our own. So they are known as a perfect market system or neoclassicalist. Now, under these people now, the following are the assumptions of a perfect market system. They have some assumptions. Assumption number one is that no individual person can influence the market. What it means is that there is a free entry and free exit. Nobody can influence the market. Is that possible in real world? I will leave that for you to answer. Number two is that the market is only controlled by the forces of demand and supply. Meaning that individual cannot control the market. It is only the forces of the demand and supply that can control the market, right? That's another condition. So these are the signs of a perfect market system. So you can agree or disagree if this thing truly can exist or not. Then the third one is that conditions for lending and borrowing are equal for all categories of lender. That means there is no bias, there is no discrimination. The same way Mr. A can access money is the same way Mr. B can access money. Then look at the fourth one. There are no transaction costs, no information costs. Everything is free under perfect market system, Arrow-Debreu model. Then the fourth one says that there is no information asymmetry, meaning the volume of information that I have is also this volume of information that you have. That's the meaning of that. Meaning information is, there is no asymmetry of information. Everybody have same access of information, and there is free entry. There is free entry and exit. So if you believe that this perfect market exists, that means you are dreaming inside a dream. You need to wake up 2 times to come to reality, because this perfect market system does not exist anywhere. And it is this perfect market system that gives rise to what is known as a direct finance. So it is the perfect market system that gives rise to what is known as direct finance. So I'm sure by now we all know the meaning of direct finance. Okay. Now, let's move on to, so there is no perfect market system, just forget it. But in the exam, I'm suspecting they might ask us to list, according to Arrow-Debreu model, what at least 5 conditions of a direct market system. According to Arrow-Debreu model, that's a likely exam question. They can ask to list those conditions. Anyway, if time permits us, we can touch on some past questions tonight, no problem. Okay? All right, let's move on. So let's move on to imperfect market system. So please, let me give you a shortcut. Perfect market system is direct finance. Imperfect market system is indirect finance. No thinking required. Perfect market system is your direct finance. Then imperfect market system is your indirect finance. Because under the imperfect market system, this is where we involve the use of financial intermediaries. We involve the use of, let me mute. We involve the use of what? Financial intermediaries. is noted. So here we use those people that are known as what? Financial intermediaries. So that is what makes imperfect market system to be different from a perfect market system. So I'm sure we know who are the financial intermediaries now. Okay. So there are some theories that under the direct market systems, those theories exist. However, there are some principles that we have under direct system, market system, but it is because those principles are not realistic. So they now result into what is known as what? Theories of financial intermediation. So there is a material that I'm going to send to us tonight. I think I've shared it with us before, but it seems if you don't have it, this material was given to our full-time colleagues, right? By Prof. Okay, but it wasn't, but I was able to get the material. So this material, if you can, I will share it on the WhatsApp platform. It explains everything I'm about to explain, all the theories. So you can just glance through them. Please, for your information, glance through the materials again. So what are the theories of financial intermediaries now? The first one I want to explain is known as information asymmetry theory. You know, one of the condition under perfect market system is that there is no information asymmetry. But the indirect people now says that it is not possible. There is always information what? Asymmetry, because the volume of information that is available to Mr. A is different from what is available to Mr. B. E.g., the volume of information that a banks have, you cannot compare it with the volume of information that an individual will have. So that is why there is always information asymmetry, because both banks and individual, what banks have, me as a Kazim, I don't have it. Banks have plenty information, but an individual like me don't have that. So that's the reason why there is information asymmetry, right? So information asymmetry simply means the volume of information is not equal to both parties. The volume of information is not equal. That is the meaning of information asymmetry. All right. So let's discuss. There are two types of information under information asymmetry. The first one is known as what? Ex ante information. Ex ante information. And the second one is known as what? Ex post information. The first one is known as ex ante information, and the second one is known as ex post information. Now, this ex ante information is the information that is available before a transaction happens. Before I give you loan, the information I have about you, those are your ex ante. Before I give you facilities, I know you are a well-behaved person. I know you are this, I know you are that. I have some of your background knowledge. So any information that I have about you, before I give you a loan, they are known as what? Ex ante. So if I made mistakes about ex ante, if I make mistake about ex ante, my information, I didn't get it right, then it will result into a problem called adverse selection problem. So this adverse selection problems normally comes from ex ante. Simply means that if you don't get your information right before your transaction is given, then it will result into what is known as what? Adverse selection problem. So adverse selection problem is usually a problem because you lack adequate information before a transaction occurs. That is adverse selection. You lack adequate information before a transaction occurs. That is adverse selection. Then the next one is known as what? Ex post information. So this ex post information is the information after I've given you transaction, after I've given you the facility, you now start misbehaving. That is ex post. After I've given you the facility, you started misbehaving. Before you collect the facility, you are so nice. Now, after you have the facility, you started misbehaving. So the errors that come from this ex post normally result into a problem called moral hazard. So note that it is the error from ex post that results into moral hazard. So moral hazard is when the borrower is unable to pay. Okay, when the borrower is unable to pay, that is what is known as what? Moral hazard. When the borrower is unable to pay because it could not keep up with the terms and condition. When the borrower is unable to pay because the borrower unable to keep up with what terms and conditions. So that is what results into moral hazard. All right. Now let's look at the how bank can reduce the risk, this risk of adverse selection. Now, how do banks reduce the risk of adverse selection? Number one is that they have to do proper KYC of the person, right? They will do KYC very well, ensure that everything is in order. They obtain intelligence report. Before bank gives you money, they will go and check your credit bureau to know that whether you have not reported loan in the past. Then they check your background checking. They will review your audited financial statements. They do so many things before they give you loan, risk diverse. So they do all these things, right? These are how banks, because it's a past questions too. How can bank reduce adverse selection? That's a past question. Now, the next thing is how, please, are you guys following me? I've been talking for long. Let me know. Are you guys following me? Is this thing clear to you with the way I'm
Yes,
just summarizing
yeah.
everything? Okay, okay. Let's go on. Let's move on then. Let's move on. So how can bank reduce moral hazard? That's the next one. How can bank reduce the risk of moral hazard? So what is moral hazard? The risk that you will not pay back your loan in the future. So how can this risk be eliminated? Number one, they will continue to do monitoring. Ensure that there is proper monitoring. They monitor you very well, like they visit your premises to be sure that you are producing. They will check, is everything okay? They will keep coming up and down to check on you. Then the second one is proper loan covenants. They ensure that they draft a proper loan covenant with you to be sure that at least all the T&C in the loan covenant, you meet up with them. There is insurance. So insurance is just to transfer risk, right? Insurance is just to transfer risk so that should in case you messed up, then they can fall back on insurance to pay. So that is all about the first theory I would like to explain. That's theory number one. Now let's look at the theory number two. I need to be fast now because I'm still on one topic sense. Okay, I need to be fast now. So the second one is theory of asset transformation. Theory of what? Asset transformation. So this theory normally arises because of a problem. You know, under the direct perfect market, some people say that everything is perfect. But here, they say that there is a differences in preferences. What the lender wants may not be the same as what the borrower want to give. That is, I mean, what the lender wants, what the lender want to give may not be the same as what the borrower wants. That is what normally results into asset transformation. So this asset transformation can be grouped into four. We have the size, we have the maturity, we have liquidity and risk. Size means that the volume of how much you want. It's possible that you want something in, maybe you want like 10 billion, but banks can only afford to give you 2 billion. That's differences in size. Okay, that's differences in size. The size of what you want may not be the same as the size of what bank can offer. Then the second one is maturity. It's possible that you want a short-term loan. I mean, you want a long-term loan. However, bank can only give you a short-term loan. That's a differences in maturity. Okay, then liquidity. So under these scenarios now, lender, you went to deposit money in the bank, you will deposit your money in a liquid form, right? So these banks will now convert your money from liquid to an illiquid form, known as loan and advances. You went to deposit your money in the banks, but banks will now convert this into an illiquid form to various people, right? Then risk. What this simply means that risk is being transferred between the lender and the borrowers. You can also use your insurance company to transfer risk. So that's for that. Then that is for that. Then so let's move on to this. So that's just about the theory of asset transformation, which simply comes because of the differences in preferences. Then the third theory is on transaction cost. So under the transaction cost, this one also says that under the direct, under direct finance, it says that transaction cost is zero. But here we now say that no, it is not possible that there will not be transaction cost, that there must be transaction cost. So we have two types of transaction costs here. This one is ex ante and the other one is ex post. Ex ante, there are those transaction costs before the transaction of what, e.g. research, search cost, verification, KYC, CAC, all those things. Before you give a facility, those costs that you incur. Then the second one is ex post. Those costs you incur after you have given out facilities. Examples are monitoring costs, enforcement costs, cost of prosecution. It can go as high as prosecution or entering courts, right? So those are some of the S posts. Now, the next theory, we've discussed 3 theories now. So theory number 4 that we would like to discuss now is on delegated monitoring. Delegated monitoring. So this is another theory. So this delegated monitoring is basically to ensure that whatever fund that banks give out, they continue to act as a monitoring. They monitor the loan. This is how it works. Like me that owns money, I deposited my money into the banks, right? Banks now gives out my money to third party. So that it is not me that owns the money that will be monitoring which banks give out money to. It is the banks that will be monitoring them on my behalf. That is what delegated monitoring is. The people that owns the money, they are the customers that deposited the money in the banks, right? So the money of those customers that were deposited in the banks will now use those money to trade, to load, they will loan it out to people. Now, it is not the customer that will go and be chasing the people that banks have loaned the money to. It is the job of the banks to monitor who they are giving out the money to. So that is where the concept of delegated monitoring. So me that is a customer, I have delegated the monitoring of that whatever to banks. It is banks wahala. Now then use the money to give out loan to people. They must be the one to monitor it. So that is where the concept of delegated monitoring theory is coming from. Okay, then the number 5 theory is theory of information economies of scales. So what this one is saying is that the volume of banks, information that banks have is much than what an individual have, and banks leverage on economies of scales in the sense that what banks will spend to acquire information will be much cheaper than what an individual will spend, because banks, they leverage on economies of scales. They have a large volume of transactions. So they rely on their volume to get information at a much cheaper rate. So that is what information economies of scale is talking about, because they can get it at a reduced cost, unlike an individual. Okay. So that's for that. Then the next one is liquidity insurance theory. Now, sometimes we can have a shock in the economy. Look at what happened during COVID-19. During COVID-19, there was a shock. Most of the business went down. So these financial intermediaries now, they have a way of protecting the industry or the masses whenever there is any shock, impact of shock. We have global economic meltdown sometimes. We have COVID-19 pandemics. So banks can fall back on insurance and their CRR to protect the economy against all form of shocks. So that is what liquidity insurance is all about. So they can always act as an insurance or as like a backup in case there is any shock in the economy. So that is the concept of liquidity insurance theory. So through this CRR insurance, banks act as a backup or as a shock, so that whenever there is any shock in the economy, like global meltdown, pandemics, they can fall back on those CRR to still manage the economy, to make sure the economy is still afloat. All right. So I think that is all about the 6 theories, right? Please, is there anyone that have questions about these 6 theories? I've just summarized all the 6 theories now for us. The first one is is information asymmetry. The second one is asset transformation. The third one is transaction cost. The fourth one is delegated monitoring. The fifth one is economies of scales of information. And the last one is liquidity insurance theory. Please, any question? I want to move on to another topic. Any question? So what I have just taught now, these were the area that Prof. Oke covered with us, right? I think this was the only topic he taught us and he didn't come again under the 812. So these are the only topic that Prof. Oke taught us, and that is all. All right, I want to move on to the next lecturers now, which is Dr. Oyewale, right? So Dr. Oyewale taught us about these financial systems. So he taught us on financial system, right? So he gave us different elements of financial systems. So there are 5, then he gave us number 6. Number 6 is the combination of 1 to 5. So the first one is the financial regulatory framework. The second one is the Nigeria financial institution. The third one is the financial market. The fourth one is the financial instrument. Then the fifth one is under financial participants, and we have combination of all. So let's start from number 1 now, financial regulatory framework. So this financial regulatory framework, the top hierarchy of regulators are the President and National Assembly. Then under President and National Assembly, we have the Ministry of Finance. So the following are the bodies that Ministry of Finance supervise. CBN, they supervise CBN, right? I think we are able to prove it in one of our tutorials that CBN governor report to the president. However, the Ministry of Finance still supervise or monitor the operation of CBN. All right, so this agency you have here, CBN, ADIC, and Nigerian Security and Exchange Commission, Pension, NICOM, they are all under Ministry of Finance. Okay, so these are the regulatory authorities. President, NAS, those are the highest of the highest. Ministry of Finance, then under the Ministry of Finance, we have all these bodies, CBN, NDIC, SEC, PENCOM, NICOM. All right, then the second one is the financial law regulation. So each of these bodies, they have a law that governs them. For example, for CBN now, it is the CBN Act of 1958, and they started operation in 1959. That's CBN. Act of 1958, they started operation in 1959. Then we have the NDIC decree, NSEC, PENCOM, and NICOM. So please note, in case you are told to write the various financial law regulations, so these are what you write. Okay, these are Dr. Oyewale's lecture. Then next one is, we now move on to financial institutions. So the first one we discuss are the financial regulatory framework. Under the regulatory framework, we discuss those authorities and the law governing them. Then number 2 is the financial institutions. So under the financial institution, we have the bank financial institutions and the non-bank financial institutions. So banks financial institutions, they are those institutions that have the authority to trade with customers, right? In terms of collection of money and investing money, depositing and withdrawal. So examples of the BFI, they are your deposit money banks. Deposit money banks, they are all these our commercial banks. Zenith, GTB, Access, all of them, they are known as deposit money banks. Then the next one is merchant banks. The third one is the BOI, microfinance bank, and infrastructural bank. So all these things, they are under bank financial institutions. So if they ask you to list 5 BFI, don't rush and be saying GTB, Zenith, Access. You are wrong, go. If they say list examples of the BFI, examples of the BFI are number 1, DMB, deposit money banks. Number 2, merchant banks. Number 3, BOI. Number 4, microfinance bank. Number 5, infrastructural banks. Okay, it is if they now say, okay, what are the examples of deposit money banks? That is when you can start listing Access Bank, GT banks, all of them. But if they ask you who are the list examples of BFI, I'm sure you know the difference now. So please don't enter Lagoon. No? You know, Lagoon is very close to Unilag. Understand the difference. Those banks are DMB, but BFI are all these things I've listed here. Okay, let me leave that for now. Now, what about the non-BFIs? Non-BFIs, they are the non-banking financial institutions. Those ones, they don't do banking, but they are also part of the financial intermediaries. Examples of the non-BFIs are insurance company, investment company, pension company, and finance house. So all these ones are non-BFI. Okay. Now, so now that we have discussed, we are done with the Nigerian financial institutions now. Let's move on to the third one. The third one is financial market. So what is a financial market? It's a market where financial instruments or transactions can be traded. Okay, financial market is a market where financial instruments or transactions can be traded. So there are two types of financial market. We have the money market and capital market. So under money market, here we are dealing with short-term instruments alone. Money market is all about the short-term instruments, whereas the capital market is about the long-term instrument. So under capital market, here you can buy and sell the long-term instrument, but under money market, you can buy and sell short-term instrument. So who can give me examples of what you can buy under money market? Just two. I need two. Fastest finger. What can you buy and sell under money market? Oh yeah.
Treasury bills and bonds.
Treasury bills and what?
Commercial paper, promissory notes, bonds.
Perfect. A few way. Under the money market, you can buy your CP, commercial paper. You can buy your treasury bill. Narrow escape for Barcelona. We lost, but we qualify. Sorry. As I'm teaching, I'm watching ball too. Okay, capital. This match won't give me at attack. They scored 2 in how many minutes? My player, all of them don't tire. What's it? Okay, I pray Arsenal to qualify tomorrow. They don't fuck up. So let's move on now. So capital market now. Somebody should give me 2 examples of what you can do under capital market. What can you trade under capital market? Two. Anybody? I need 2 examples of what you can trade. Shares
and the
bonds. Those are what you can trade on capital market. Perfect. You are correct. Now, what is a financial instrument, first of all? So financial instrument is a contract that gives rise to a financial asset in one entity and a financial liabilities or equity instruments in another entity. So that is just what financial instrument is all about. So you have your money market instrument and capital market instrument, which is the same thing as what we discussed previously. So I'm sure you can see the examples now. Then other financial participants. So these are the other peoples that are involved in all this financial system. We have stockbroker, forex trader, depositor, and informal sector. Under the informal sector, you have those people that collect ajo, those that collect esusu, and the rest. There are also other market participants. Then there is something that now connects all those 5 together. That's where we have combination of 1 to 5. E.g., if CBN says that transaction cost should be 0, all of them will collect. Everybody will collect because banks depends on transaction cost. So any regulation from CBN normally affects all of them together. So just take note of that, okay? All right, I'm moving on to the next topic now. So next topic that I want to discuss with us is balance sheet management. Who taught us balance sheet management? I think it was, I want to remember who taught us this. It was in Dr. Yewale. It was, sorry, can someone remind me? Who taught us balance sheet? I wasn't in class that day.
Oyewale.
Okay, still Oyewale, right? Perfect. So when we say balance sheet management of financial institution, it's basically how their balance sheet is being run. So like I said, in your balance sheet, there are only 3 things there. Is either it is asset, liability, or equity. That's balance sheet. Sorry, let me write the name there so that when I'm doing my own revisions, so I know what to focus on. Dr. Yewale, yeah. So is either it is an asset, liability, and I said that your asset can be financed either through liability or equity. You can finance, please, I'm going to take this class till 10:30, so we won't stop by, exam is near, so 10 o'clock will not work. Permit me to run this thing till 10:30. So thou shalt not sleep yet. Okay. So balance sheet management. Who is that? Okay. I think you will. Okay. So this balance sheet management, your balance sheet can be financed through your equity and liability, right? So that's how you finance your assets. E.g., if you own a car of 100 million, there are either 2 ways of buying a car. Either you borrow money or you pay cash from your pocket, or you do both. That is the way of financing assets. You can finance your asset through your liability or equity. Now, the way banks prepare their balance sheet in order of liquidity. So if you check the balance sheet of a bank, the first thing you will see there is cash. Okay? The first thing you will see in bank balance sheet is cash, unlike a normal company. Yeah, CBN is the apex. Correct. I agree with you. So banks prepare their balance sheet in order of what? Liquidity. All right. They prepare their balance sheet in order of liquidity, meaning when you look at the bank balance sheet, the first thing you see under the asset is cash. But when you look at the balance sheet of FMCG, you will see non-current asset. But in bank, it is cash that you will see first. Okay. So the objective of balance sheet management is just to ensure that you manage your assets in an effective manner. Okay, your assets, liability, and equity are managed in an effective manner to ensure there is a balance between your profitability and liquidity. If a bank goes too high on profitability, there will be an impact on liquidity. And if the banks goes too high on liquidities too, it will have impact on what? Profitability. So liquidity and profitability, somehow they have an inverse relationship. Okay, let me throw a question at us. Let me use that one to drink water. Can someone tell me why there is an inverse relationship? Okay, I should recap on asset, liability, liquidity. I will do that. It's okay. Abiodun, I just say I will do that shortly. But I want to take a break and I want to relax more. I want someone to tell me why there is an inverse relationship between the profitability of a bank and the liquidity of the bank. Anybody who want to explain that for us? Why the profitability concept and liquidity have inverse relationship? I need someone to quickly help me out and solve that puzzle for us. Why do they have inverse relationship? The profitability and liquidity. Why? Oh yeah, make people know for my hand now. Why is there inverse relationship between profitability of a bank and liquidity of a bank? Nobody wants to try. Okay, let me carry my cross. I will say it. The reason is that if a bank goes too hard on profitability, liquidity will be affected. How will it be affected? For example, a bank is just giving out loan to anybody anyhow. You know, the more loan a bank gives out, the more interest they earn. And the more interest they earn, the more profit they will report. But if a bank is giving out all its money as loan, the liquidity will drop now, right? Remember, if a bank is giving out all its money as loan, there are any profit, interest, but the liquidity is reducing. So as the profit is increasing, liquidity is what? Is dropping. So a bank that relax its liquidity will make more money. However, the liquidity will fall. Why a bank that have a very strict policy on liquidity, they don't give out loans. So their profitability will be impacted, but they will have a very strong liquidity. So that is why there is always an inverse relationship between profitability and liquidity of banks. So someone said I should explain it again. Asset is what you owned, right? Liability is what you are owing people, and equity is your own money. Okay, so you can finance your asset either through, e.g., you own one phone, iPhone 15. That's your phone, Abi. So that iPhone 15 that you own, let's say it is 2 million naira, for example, is either you finance it through your own money or you borrow it. So if you finance your iPhone 15 through your own money, that means your assets of 2 million will equal to your equity of 2 million. Liability is zero. Let's now say that iPhone 15, you went to borrow money to acquire it. The meaning is that your iPhone 15, 2 million will equal to your liability of 2 million. So you finance your asset either through your liability or equity. Those are the ways of financing assets. So the purpose of balance sheet management is just to ensure that you properly manage your assets and liability very well. That is what balance sheet management is all about. So let's look at the key aspect of balance sheet management. I have many of them, but in class, the focus was on two things in class. I won't talk about the one that we're not taught in class. Not one is a liquidity management. to ensure there is sufficient liquid asset to meet up with your short-term obligations. This is what liquidity management is all about. Then there is capital adequacy. I will skip that. So in class, we are only taught liquidity management and profitability management. So the other one are just for your information. I won't talk about them. So liquidity management is just to ensure that you have enough fund to meet up with your short-term obligation crisis. Why profitability simply means you try to optimize your income, because your shareholders, nothing concerns your shareholders, those people that purchase shares in banks, nothing concerns them about liquidity. What they want is how much profit so that you can declare dividend. Okay, so that is how to balance the two. All right, so how does banks monitor their liquidity? What are the control measures in place in banks to monitor liquidity? What are the control measures in place? Okay, someone writes, liquidity is negative, profit influence. Liquidity is negative, profit influence in banks. Can Abiodun unmute? I want to understand this statement. Abiodun, can you unmute and tell us what you mean by liquidity is negative, profit influence in banks? I'm not getting this. Maybe there is grammatical error somewhere. Abiodun, if you can unmute and explain, it would be nice so that. Okay, let's carry on. So, what are the control measures in place to manage liquidity? So, there are some control measures that are put in place by the CBN. Why there are some control measures that it is the bank themselves that put them in place. So, the control measures that are put in place by CBN, number one is OMO. Whenever government want to reduce money in circulation, government will just sell TB or bond. Yeah, those treasury bills and bonds that government are selling, they are using those things to mop out cash from circulation. They want to reduce the money in circulation. Then the other second one is the cash reserve ratio. This cash reserve ratios too is a compulsory deposit that banks must maintain with CBN. E.g., if you deposit 1 million with commercial bank now, 500K will be kept by CBN. Bank can only trade with your 500K. So CRR is a compulsory deposit that is kept with CBN, right? Then the second one is LRR. LRR is not with CBN, but it is kept within the banks in a liquid form. So when a bank tries to invest in a liquid asset, that is LRR. So what banks can give out as loan to customers or to people is the difference is the total deposit of a customer minus CRR minus LRR. It is the difference that they can give out as loans, right? Then the last one is known as the stabilization security. This one is the compulsory savings by banks compelled by CBN, like compulsory adjust that banks must drop with CBN. So you can use this to understand the difference between LRR and CRR, please. So you can use this to understand the difference between your cash reserve ratios and liquid reserve ratios. So you can use this to understand that. I will drop this material again on the platform. In case you don't have it, you can read it. Okay, so I've given out some of the examples of liquidity of banks. Number one, what are the makeup of the liquidity of the banks in Nigeria? They can ask us in exam. List examples of how banks keep their liquidity. Number one is the cash held by CBN, cash held with other banks. Do you know that banks save money with themselves? GCB can save money with Zenith, and Zenith can save money. Banks save money with themselves, right? Treasury bills too. All these treasury bills, they are a way of collecting money from the masses, reducing the cash in circulation. Okay, that's what treasury bills. So go through all these things. These are the various ways that they keep their. So the last one I would like to discuss before I go tonight is the difference between profitability and liquidity, which I've already explained. However, there are three ways that banks measure profitability. Remember, we have said a lot about liquidity, but what we are going to discuss about liquidity is that how banks keep liquidity, how they maintain it. So profitability, there are three ways of how banks measure profitability. The first one is the return on assets. Return on asset is your profit divided by your total assets. That's return on assets. Return on shareholders' equity is your profit divided by shareholders' equity. Then return on capital employed is your profit divided by capital employed. But I don't think they will ask you to calculate all this thing in the exam. Probably
Come again.
they will inform. Okay, I'm coming. I'm reading a message here by Abiodun. Banks manage their liquidity by investing on short-term assets, which provide low returns, and thus liquidity negatively influence profits of banks. Okay, it makes sense now. I understand you now. Thanks.
Because they cannot convert those assets into cash immediately.
You said what?
I said maybe because they cannot convert those assets into cash immediately. That's why it will lead to liquidity negatively.
Let me read now. More liquidity is equal to less money being in. Yes. So if you are keeping much liquidity, that means you are not willing to give out money. And if you are not giving out money, your profit will drop. Correct. Mr. Nafada, you properly crafted it well. Yes. Correct. Okay, let's move on. So return on total assets is equal to profit divided by total assets times 100/1. That's your return on total assets. Profit divided by total assets times 100/1. Return on shareholders' equity, that's profit divided by shareholders' equity times 100/1. That's return on shareholders' equity. Profit divided by shareholders' equity times 100/1. Then the last one is return on capital employed. Return on capital employed. That's profit divided by capital employed times 100/1. Profit divided by capital employed times 100/1. So these are the various ways of measuring the profitability of banks, right? These are the various ways. So the next one is liquidity. There are two schools of thought under liquidity. The first one is a pool of fund approach, and the second one is AAA, asset allocation approach. So before we look at it, under pool of fund approach, here, all your money, you will gather them together inside one pool. All the money will be gathered inside one pool. Both the long time or deposit to every money you have, you will gather them together inside one pool. You will now invest them. So there is no difference between short-term investment, long-term. You can use anything to do anything. So that is what we call under pool of fund asset. Look at these scenarios now. You can see these are the various, what you have on the left are the various sources of liquidity to banks. Demand deposits, savings deposit, the money you went to save in your savings account, time deposit. Some people keep money in the bank for 10 years, 20 years, like that. Capital funds, some people keep all this money. So all this money here, they will gather them together into this pool of fund is like a basket. All this money, they will gather them in a basket. Then that basket now, they will now invest them in anything they like. They can put everything on secondary, loan and advances, other, so they can invest them anyhow. Now, the difference here is that the risk that we have here is that if bank went to invest all this money under long-term security, fixed asset, what if the people that are fixed savings deposit, what if they now need their money now? How will bank be able to pay them? Because they have invested all the money under long time. So that is the risk between pool of fund approach. So under the pool of fund, there is always tendency or risk of fund mismatch. Yes. Because every money that the bank gather, they will put everything in one pool and invest. What if the people that need money want it and go and they went to put everything under long-time security? So there is always a risk of mismatch of fund under this pool of fund approach. Then, so that you can see the differences here. I've listed the problems here. Number one, maturity mismatch, liquidity crisis, and if you face sanction with CBN, sanction from NFIU and financial distress. Then the second approach is known as the AAA, asset allocation approach. So under this allocation approach, you cannot do anyhow. If you do anyhow, you go collect, right? Here, we have the different type of fund. For example, savings deposit, you can only put your savings money on primary, secondary, and loan and advances. savings is primary, secondary, and advanced under security. You cannot put savings under fixed assets here. Demand deposit, you can only put it on primary, secondary, or other security. You can see there is something that every fund here, you have a specific instrument that you can put them. For example, capital fund now, you can use capital fund for only advances, other security, and fixed assets. So you cannot put capital fund in primary market because capital fund, they are those funds that are for long time. So I also gave you the formulas here too. You can see the formula. D means demand deposit. You can only use it for A, B, and what? D. So you can go through my formula too and this chart, okay, to understand this. So that is just that. All right. Financial regulatory and supervisory institution. Let's look at this before we call it a day-to-day. Financial regulation and supervisory institution. Teacher. Banks manage and liquidity. Okay, teacher, what is the relationship between profitability and liquidity in banks? Can somebody answer that? I think I've answered that several times tonight too. Can someone help me by explaining the relationship between profitability and liquidity in banks? I need someone to help me, please. That's a question. One of us has posted this question. What is the relationship between profitability and liquidity in banks? Who want to answer? Who want to help me, please? I will call names. So
inverse relationship.
Inverse. Can you explain further what you mean by the inverse relationship? You cannot write inverse in the exam now. Can you explain further? Oh yeah, you can do it. You can do it. Say it. Okay. Look
the
at
two
what
of them are very important, but there
yes,
needs
sir.
to be caution. While you are trying to make profitability, you should not invest so much of your cash and start running into liquidity squeeze. So the two of them are very important, but they need to be managed very well.
Exactly. So it depends on the culture of the banks. The higher the profitability, the lower the liquidity. And the higher the liquidity, the lower the profitability. That's just the summary of everything we have been saying. If you want to go more aggressive on profits, then your liquidity might
you
drop
have less liquidity.
Exactly. Why, if you want to be careful with liquidity, your profitability too might also drop. Okay. Let's look at the financial regulatory and supervisory institution. Number one is the CBN. CBN, they are the apex bank in Nigeria. Okay. They perform a lot of functions. Number one function of CBN is that they print money. Okay, they were established in 1958 and commenced operation in 1959. So their objectives are number one, they control inflation through all these their monthly MPC meeting. They regulate interest rate, they ensure stability, they print money. That's CBN. So what are the problems with CBN? Number one is there is usually political interferences too. You can see Emefiele went to redesign Naira. That Naira redesign, it was more of political than any other thing. So there is always political interferences with them. Okay, so read more on this. Second one is the NDIC. So NDIC, they are like a safety net. They provide some form of shield or security for depositors. That is what NDIC is all about. So they were created by NDIC Act of 1988, and objective of NDIC are they protect we the depositors. They protect us. All right. But the problem is that if banks enter liquidation, I think everybody can only get 500. Is it 500K or 505 million naira on your account? No matter how much you have, there is a limit that NDIC will give you. Is it 5 million or 500K? Can somebody clarify this? If bank enter problem, there is a limit to what NDIC can give. Is it 500 or 5 million? Anybody?
500,000.
So if you like, if you have 100
now,
million in your
it's
account.
Now 5 million. It's now 5 million.
Oh, 5 million now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So which means that if you have 100 million in your account and that banks enter Wahala, the maximum you can get is 5 million. It is well with our soul.
No. You get 5 million at first instance. Then when the assets are sold and realized, the amount realized will not be apportioned.
They will share it on Paru Pasu, Abi.
Yes, yes. But the 5 million is guaranteed.
Okay. Somebody said that for individual is 500K, corporate 5 million. So that guarantee is that then the rest, if the asset okay, not even sure. If the asset are sold, then you can now get the balance. But I can bet it by the time the asset are sold and they pay up their creditors, what will be left for you will be very, very small, or you just go and sleep with it or whatever. So let's look at the SEC. So this SEC, they are like the regulatory body for all the capital market operation in Nigeria. Sorry, there is one scam that that people are talking about now. Is this QBES or what is the name of that scam? Can someone remind me? Social media is bubbling now. Is it QBES or EBEX or something?
CBEX.
Okay. Hope nobody invested on that CBEX. Yeah. Did anybody lose money on CBEX? You dare not talk because Kazim will surely yab you. I will yab the person that, as educated as we are still making such mistakes. So they oversee all this body, all right? And so that's what they perform. Then NICOM are for insurance company, they oversee all insurance company. I think what you should know for each of these bodies is that number one, know what they are doing, know their functions, know the year they were established. I think that should be all. Know their functions and the year they were established. Then PenCom is 2004. They are responsible for managing all pension matters in Nigeria. So that is what PenCom is all about. FR, so please just know all these things, CAC, read about them, understand their functions and role. Then I think that is all. Oh, the next one is the risk management. So I won't be able to, let's just stop here. So when we meet in 2 weeks' time, in 2 weeks' time, we are discussing between 812 proper. So I can still take more revisions, then we'll move on to past question because that we're going to run it for a full week. 812 alone. It will be daily affairs, right? Okay. So let me stop recording now. Any questions for me? I think I'm done tonight with the revision. Anyway, we'll stop today. We'll continue next week.